What challenges does human activity pose for the natural environment? How do you measure the impact of this activity? How can we best protect the natural world? Conservation biologists try to answer these kinds of questions by studying species in their natural environment. They conduct their field research using different technologies to produce evidence that can be developed into practical conservation measures. By exploring how conservation biologists are protecting animals and ecosystems, you will consider some of the challenges that human activity poses to the natural environment. You'll discover how conservation biologists are helping to protect seabirds from offshore wind turbines in the North Sea off the coast of the UK, how coral reef ecosystems are suffering under climate change, and how the loss of coral can lead to ecosystem collapse. You will also discover how listening to insects in your back garden can give you considerable insights into the health of the environment. To start, you'll consider your motivations for conserving nature. Why do you think it's important, and what other reasons are there? You'll hear from the wind farm industry, which has the task of providing clean energy without harming the environment, as well as from the scientists who are helping the industry to achieve that goal. By experimenting with real data, you'll measure how much risk the offshore wind farms might pose, and explore some of the new technologies that are allowing scientists to discover more about the life of birds and other flying animals. Discover for yourself what steps we could take to protect wildlife and to conserve the natural world. Why do we need to protect the natural world? This might seem like a surprising question, but it is an important one to consider. There are many different answers, some of which might seem obvious, but others less so. And the answers can depend on the different perspectives that you might have on conserving the natural world. You will hear now from industry professionals on why they think conservation is important and how it relates to their work.
It's essential for us to conserve the natural world. Nature provides a wealth of ecosystem services on which we rely. That might be a functional, diverse blanket bog helping us treat water quality. It might be a woodland surrounding a reservoir slowing down flows and reducing flooding. If you just boil it down to a pure business decision, it's often cheaper, it's more sustainable, and it's better value for our customers to invest in conservation than pouring concrete or dosing extra chemicals at our treatment works.
It's really important to conserve the natural world for many reasons, but for me one of the most important is that nature has an intrinsic value, and that gives a moral obligation to protect it. You know, nature has been here long before we were, and it will be here for a long time afterwards. So that gives us reason to look after it and not destroy it. I would also say that there is an economic value to nature in some circumstances, for example in pollination services, and we term that an ecosystem service, something that gives humans a benefit from something that nature provides.
It is our moral obligation to protect and restore the natural world because we are the primary cause of damage to it. It is because of our actions as humans that the natural world is suffering in so many major ways. Pollution, climate change, deforestation, the list goes on and on. But it's also about what the natural environment can and does do for us. In every single moment of our lives, we are relying upon it in so many ways, from the air we breathe to the water we drink. But as much as it does for us, there is so much left unexplored, so much more possibility that if we exploit our Earth to the point of no return, then we'll never discover all of the wonderful things that could still be out there.
I absolutely love my job because of the strong focus on conservation. So that might be positive conservation projects, like looking after the protected sites that we own, tree planting, creating wetland areas, working with other partners like rivers trusts and wildlife trusts. Or it might be helping mitigate the problems that we might cause by the infrastructure that we own. So that might be putting fish passes on weirs to help improve connectivity of our rivers. It might be working with our reservoirs to provide arc sites for native crayfish.
In my day-to-day role, I work with farmers and landowners to enhance and protect the species and habitats that they find on their land. I do this through helping them to produce management plans to ensure that all the needs for whatever is found on their land is protected for years to come and for generations to come.
The Yorkshire Wildlife Trust is a conservation charity dedicated to creating a Yorkshire rich in wildlife and wild places. We want to create a Yorkshire where people understand and are close to nature every day and really appreciate it. We want to bring about living landscapes and living seas, wildlife habitats that are bigger, better managed and more joined up. We're really proud of our nature reserves as refuges for wildlife, but alone they're not enough. We want to create a wilder future for Yorkshire, where wildlife can be found thriving everywhere and everybody has learnt to successfully live alongside wildlife, each benefiting the other.
As you can see, they each have a slightly different professional perspective on reasons for conserving the natural world. Broadly, these fall into two groups, a moral argument and an economic argument. Morally, we protect the environment because we feel that we should. We have a duty to clear up the damage that we do to the natural world. Economically, we protect the environment because we want to make sure that we can continue to receive its benefits. Clean air, drinkable water, and the ability to grow food. Which of these arguments do you think is most convincing, and why?
Renewable energy sources, such as offshore wind, can reduce our reliance on the burning of fossil fuels and help to combat climate change. However, the blade tips of offshore wind turbines can spin at more than 200 miles per hour and stand more than 200 metres above the sea surface. This poses a potential risk to seabirds. 2/3 of the world's northern gannet population breeds around the coasts of the UK and Ireland, where they embark on long foraging trips from their nests. Each year, my team and I travel to the Bass Rock, off the coast of southeast Scotland near Edinburgh, where we study the impact of wind turbines on northern gannets. About 150,000 gannets breed at the Bass Rock each summer, making it the world's largest colony of this species. To help us understand the impact of turbines, we consider two questions. First, will the foraging locations of gannets bring them into contact with offshore wind farms? And second, does the height at which birds fly mean they are at risk of colliding with the turbine blades and being killed? We use two main tools to help us answer these questions: a GPS data logger and a pressure logger. This is a GPS data logger. This precisely records where the birds travel at sea. And this is a pressure logger. As pressure is lower at higher altitudes, this device can calculate how high the birds fly. A bird's location is recorded every 2 minutes, while the bird is at sea, and pressure every second. The tags weigh very little compared to the animal. Gannets weigh about 3 kilograms, while the tags have a combined weight of less than 50 grams. This is less than 1/10 of the weight of food that it routinely carries back to the nest. When we have caught a gannet, we weigh it to check it's in good condition, then we attach the GPS and pressure loggers to its tail. We also attach a numbered plastic ring to the bird's leg so we can identify it later. We then release it back to the nest. After a couple of weeks, we recapture the bird to retrieve the loggers and download the data. We leave the leg ring on so we can identify the bird in future years and monitor annual survival of birds at the colony. Our data have shown that there is a risk of birds colliding with turbines. However, the risk can be greatly reduced by increasing the minimum height between the rotating blades and the sea surface. We're now looking more closely at how the movements and behaviour of birds are affected by weather conditions at sea and how this could affect collision risk. You will now hear more about how the renewable energy industry is working with scientists to minimise the environmental impacts of wind power.
My name is Jesper Køge Larsen. I am a biologist working at Vattenfall, leading a small team of experts supporting the business in assessing and mitigating impacts of wind farms on nature conservation interests, such as seabirds and marine mammals in the case of offshore wind farms. There are still many things we need to better understand about the impacts of wind farms on nature conservation interests. We need more research, and we have the ambition to play an active part in making that happen.
I'm Andy Gouldson, and I'm a Professor of Environmental Policy here at the University of Leeds. I work on climate change and I work around the world delivering low-carbon development. So fossil fuels can be massively unsustainable because burning them releases greenhouse gases, and that leads to climate change, which is a major threat to all sorts of aspects of life on Earth. The Paris Agreement was a breakthrough global agreement between multiple countries who all pledged to make significant cuts in their carbon emissions, and delivering on those pledges means probably investing heavily in renewable energy Offshore wind is a major example of that, and here in the UK we've been a real world leader in investing and delivering offshore wind power in the last few years.
It is crucial to impact assessments and decision making on offshore wind farms that this can build on a solid knowledge base on the effects, like what's the collision risk and the extent of disturbance, and not least on what's the consequences of such effects for the affected populations, which is the ultimate conservation question.